Disclaimer. This program is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The following program is intended for mature audience only.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kathy Swain Jones.
Hi, I'm Dr. Denise Joseph Zollicoffer.
Hi, and I'm Sonia Williams Finney.
And this is
Menopause Diaries, real talk, real stories.
Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. I hope that you will find it helpful and supportive. We're so glad that you have chosen to come back and listen to our podcast. And we ask you just to share it with your friends and other people who you think may benefit from it, which I kind of think it's everyone. But, that's my preference, is to share our program with everyone. Just to remind you that we're just having conversations. We're having girl talk. We're talking about issues that plague us, menopause, and all the symptoms and trials and joys of menopause. And hopefully something that you hear on this program will help you to live your next X number of years in menopause to the fullest. And we're really glad that you have chosen to join us. My name is Denise Joseph Zollicoffer, and I am joined by my two partners, Dr. Kathy Jones.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Hello.
And Sonia Finney.
Hello, everyone.
So there you have it. This is the dream team. And as you know, we bring on guests, and our guests are willing to share their stories with you. And it's how we support each other as we go through this wonderful journey of menopause. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, and she's a friend of our program, Debbie Dickinson, and she is going to be sharing with us today her menopause story. Debbie, welcome.
I am delighted to be here. Thank you all for having me. This is so much fun.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Debbie, if you could just start by, sharing your menopause journey with us. Tell us how it's been, what's going on, and hopefully, someone out there will be having an aha moment as you share.
Great. Thank you. Happy to do so. It's interesting. 51 is the year that comes to mind. So at age 51 is when I realized when I experienced my first hot flash. Let's say there, and that was a moment of, oh my gosh, what is happening with my body? I feel like I am combusting. I knew something was happening. Am I going to even survive this moment? It was something that was so, because I take good care of myself. I'm in great health. But there was something that happened in that moment that it was like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I remember that. And then, much from that. But the more I realized and, talked to other women and other matriarchs in the family and realized, aha, that was a hot flash. And then my own just kind of learning what was happening. That's when I became familiar with the term perimenopause. I had never heard that term prior to that. And then, realizing that, so much was happening with our bodies. And I was actually experiencing symptoms several years before in the form of anxiety, and racing heart and that sort of thing. But I didn't associate that with perimenopause, this phantom, term I'd never even heard of before. So it's been an evolution. So, hot flash, night sweats, number of other symptoms. And then, just over the last several years, just seeing how things ebb and flow and how it is so comprehensive and we really, there's so much that's happening with our bodies and the fluctuation of these hormones. And it's like it's a discovery of, oh, okay, this ache and that pain and muscle pain and joint pain and vaginal dryness. I mean, it's so comprehensive. But really feeling as if, with community, with education, with really, forming a sisterhood. So that personal experience then led to talking to others, talking to my daughters, and then them talking to their cohorts and girlfriends and such, and realizing, oh my gosh, aha moments for them. That's what was happening with my mom. I had no idea. Okay, because they hadn't had those conversations. Um, and then the feeling as if I really needed to be courageous, and from the standpoint of it was not natural for me to start talking about, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, are you? But in order to help others feel more comfortable sharing their experiences, I recognized that it was important for me to be a strange one talking about, okay, all right, I'm having a hot flash. That's why I look like, I just got out of a pool. So let's talk about it, and not feeling shame, even though that I think society and with stereotypes and that sort of thing, there's more shame and isolation.
What was some of the things? What was? Oh, to interrupt you, I'm so sorry. But what was some of the things when you went to the doctor? Was there anybody? Were they able to share anything with you at that point? Like, because just listening to you, you sounded so courageous that you realized this is a thing, and we need to figure out what to do about this thing. And
Right.
you sat on a path to do it. But did you get any kind of input from your gynecologist or? To help you understand that maybe there was something you can do about it, because so many women don't.
Yeah, I would say by the time, short answer is no. I did not. I was most of the empowerment and information came from research,
Very good.
connecting with others, and really at that time realizing that there was literally not much, if anything, out there. So the disinformation that was associated. So I did not feel when I, spoke to my gynecologist, it was, you're going through the quote unquote the change.
Yeah, it was a disconnect. You felt
was
like,
a
no, there's got to be more to
Absolutely.
this.
So it was your body is changing, just get used to it. Accept it. Unless you're ready for things that you're not necessarily even eligible for or doesn't make sense. It was just it was just accept what's happening until you need us.
And don't ask me much more about it.
Just
Do you
deal with
have an engineering or science background that made you kind of like, excuse me, doctor, but no, there has to be something else, because that's amazing.
Yeah, I did. My background is the audacity of not accepting
Okay.
what I believe is just, whether it's injustice. The
Yes.
catalyst for me was, we're talking, highly trained, educated, take good care of myself, really feeling that women have a place at the table, and we've come so far, and there's so much that we can do. And mother, when you're a mom and you have daughters behind you, you have to do things a certain way to create a path for them. So the catalyst for me, and it's funny because my daughter would bring this up, because I would always, when people say, what is your menopause story? I always go to that hot flash moment. Oh my God, I'm dying. But what my daughter would remind me of, she would say, Mom, the catalyst for you in starting a business to actually create a solution for women. Like, I mean, it went on. I'm like, we got to do something. But the catalyst for me was speaking to a matriarch. So at that point, I'd lost my mom, and she passed at 52. So did not have a chance to say, Mom, what did you experience at 51 or 52? Right. I was talking to actually my stepmother, and I told her what I'd felt, what I'd experienced, and she said, "Oh, that was a hot flash." So I was like, "Oh, okay, this was an And then the next thing she said is, and it's gonna last. This is a thick Jamaican accent. It will last about 10 years or so, man. And let me tell you something. Don't tell somebody that what I just felt, that I don't want to last for 10 seconds, is gonna last for 10 years or so. And the nonchalance, it was just like, yeah, that's kind of what you had, that blah blah. It was that moment. It was looking at how she was experiencing or had experienced, and I like accepted. And knowing that so many others were dealing with something, and just accepting without, and being empowered, without information, without resources, with this isolation, and go in the bathroom, get yourself together, splash some water on your face, and come out. Let's
Or
pretend.
give up with a lot of our mothers and our grandmothers did. They just kind of gave up at that point.
Yes, yeah. Crazy. So yeah, no.
Well, Debbie, I love what you said. I mean, you looked at the fact that you didn't have the female support for you as your age, and you were didn't have your mom to talk to about it, and probably not a lot of people around you were talking about it. And then once you talked to your stepmother, realized what was going on, that you then started talking to your daughters who are, at least 20 or plus years younger than you about how to prepare for this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, connecting with other women. And then they started connecting with their friends. Their friends started connecting with their parents. And it was an amazing moment because in addition to, oh my gosh, that's what mom was experiencing when she was opening up the window in the midst of winter and sticking her head out, and all these strange behaviors started making sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that was amazing was how much of their contemporaries were experiencing, I'll call it thermal dysregulation, right? So
Right.
they themselves were experiencing hot flashes or, uncomfortably hot or cold, whether it was a medical situation, cancer, surviving, fighting cancer. So I'm breast cancer, I'm in chemo. I'm also having hot flashes, pregnant, and I'm dealing with certain things. I'm anxious, when I have something, a presentation or something. So it's like, all right, wait, there is something happening here that so many people, disparate people, are experiencing. Thyroid conditions. I can just go on and on. So what can
all kind of things. Yeah.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
created a community that was then empowered and felt free and to have conversations about this stuff. And it then went from menopausal issue to this is a women's issue at various stages in our lives as we deal with aging.
Absolutely. Yes. And again, getting the feedback and recognizing how many, women at different ages. So, 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's like, wait, we really, we need to share. So, and searching for what other communities were there, seeing nothing, right? Nothing. It's 2019. This is like, again, it's hush hush. There's confusion, there's disinformation. This is something that happens to some people, not others. 5 years now, it's a third or more of your life when we're realizing postmenopause is the rest of, so
Right.
it was a time where there was so little available, and really wanting to create a safe space. So we chose Facebook and created the multi-generational sisterhood on health, wellness, embracing health, wellness, and menopause. So let's have a space where we can just talk and we can share information and, and laugh. And whether it's articles, it's just a fun place to connect and learn and feel empowered and recognize that we're not alone.
And this is precisely why we started this podcast. As briefly, Sonia and I went out to lunch and we were just talking, and from that, this idea of okay, let's do this podcast came about because we started sharing symptoms just like you talked about, and realizing that this is something that we need to share with others, empower others to talk about, to understand some of what's going on with their bodies and themselves. And even when you start talking about the anxiety that you experienced early on, that a lot of people don't realize that that's also a perimenopausal symptom. So this is why we're doing this.
Exactly. And, Debbie, my mom is 92. Actually, my mom has dementia and I am like her primary caretaker. But unfortunately, my mom never had those conversations with me. My mom wasn't the one to talk. We never even talked about a period. I mean, I can literally remember when I got my period, I didn't even know what it was, didn't even know what to do or talk to her about it. And I just remember being in the room or in the bathroom and she coming in and she was like, "Oh, what is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And so, I mean, but there was never any pre-conversation leading up to it. Hence, we never even talked about menopause. So now that she has dementia, I can't even go back and say, "Mom, when did you start going, when did you have, I can't ask any questions because obviously she can't tell me at this point. But I also,
Right.
like you, have a young daughter who I don't want to, and I try to have this conversation. And even when we were talking about, and when I was sharing with her about the idea of, starting a podcast, and we were talking about logos and things, and she has a friend, and I was like, "Can your friend help us with the logo?" And so she said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Well, the title," and I gave her, I said, "Our title is Menopause Diaries." And so I said, "Just come up with something." And she was like, "What is that? I don't know." So here is her friend, another 20-some-year-old, and and so I started laughing and she says, "Mom," she says her mom never talked to her about that. So here we are, now just imagine how the generations that come behind us, how much more and how educated they're going to be because of people like yourself and, this podcast that we're doing, because
Yeah.
we're, like you said, educating a community. And again, that's why we set out to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
absolutely love it. And I remember when we connected, and it's so
Yeah.
needed.
Yes.
And it's a catalyst for change ultimately,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
And
one is education, and then two is really the attitude, right? So
Yes.
it's really destigmatizing and
Yes.
saying this is natural.
Yes. Yes.
We don't have to just roll over and take it.
Mm-mm.
But there are things we can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
and being a physician gynecologist for 30 years, I would say that what you have pioneered, just bringing this online and bringing this as a sisterhood, um, that's what was needed, because what we had before was a lot of men doing OBGYN, and they didn't have much to add. And then those of us women who could tell our stories, or even have a little bit more interest in teaching, we could only teach one by one in that little defined doctor's office. So for somebody to say no, enough is enough I mean, you've changed a generation. You've helped, pioneer change for a generation, actually.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and it's twofold. One was really having that conversation in safe places, and just being part of that movement, right? So whether it's articles or podcasts or just speaking openly about my
Mm-hmm.
experience. And then also really understanding, how can we what's out there in terms of technology, and how can we create technology, partner with those to create technology to provide a solution, a tech solution to really empower women. So really excited about what we're doing, but and excited about connecting with others in this space to really try to make a difference.
Can you talk a little bit about the anxiety when you thought about it in hindsight? What was that anxiety period? How long did it last that before you hit that profound hot flash moment, and how did it impact you?
Well, it lasted for about 3 years. I when I look back, I would say maybe around 48 or
Mhm.
so is
Mhm.
when. And it was an aha moment. It was doing this. I said, wait, all these symptoms, they really vary, and they're all over the place. And it's like, aha, I
Mhm.
remember a time frame when I was just anxious often. And we know when there's stress involved or when it's
Mhm.
situational, it's a little
Mhm.
different. But when it's almost on a subconscious level, you're just sitting, relaxing, or you think you're relaxing, but your heart's racing, and you feel so anxious, but you don't even know why you're anxious, and you have to then
Right.
and think, okay, what is it that's causing this? And sometimes I can find something, but it was different,
Mhm.
'cause
Mhm.
there was something different about how my body was reacting at the time,
Mhm.
and it wasn't always correlated to something that I could see or feel. So I knew there was something more than the norm.
That's interesting because I never, for you to talk about the heart palpitations and things, because I say myself, I call myself a poster child for menopause because I've had so many different symptoms. But one of the things that I didn't hear until we started doing the podcast is that that's very common, the anxiety and the heart palpitations and racing. So that seems to be something that a lot of women experience, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that. Were there like other symptoms that I mean, other than the hot flashes and the anxiety, the heart, were there any other symptoms that you experienced?
Absolutely. Well, with hot flashes is night sweat, so that's hot flashes
Yeah,
at
yeah.
night.
Mm-hmm.
Irregular period, it's like, okay, sometimes you'll be clockwork, but not, but that a lot of that is related as well. Mood disorder, I would say. So it's not necessarily depression, but depression as well could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I knew I was more moody than would otherwise be. And again, it's not always, if something is happening, you can say, okay, it's because this is having a bad day, because here are the 10 things that happened that set me on the wrong course. But often there really wasn't. You just felt down, and the mood just really fluctuated, which is tough for those who are around you, right? Your poor family is trying to deal with that. Headaches. I probably had more headaches. I have to make sure I'm hydrated, but even when I'm hydrated, I was having more headaches than the norm. I know there's some digestive things that can be correlated. So, no, I'm doing probiotics and prebiotics and all that good stuff. I wasn't there, but I knew I was having some digestive issues. The muscular pain and stuff has been more recent. It didn't start with that. So I would say that. And then it involved in some sleep disturbance as well. I would fall asleep, but then I would wake up. So I would say that was probably after the hot flashes or so kicked in. So I've experienced that. And again, I can fall asleep, but I would pop up and then I'd have to find ways to try to get back to sleep. Right. So memory and brain, so I have to be, if I meet someone, I have to say, all right, there's something that has to happen that says, all right, how am I gonna remember this name? Da 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 da. So I have to do things more. Otherwise I'll just forget certain things. Or you walk into a room because you have 10 different things that you're doing, and it's like, okay, why did I come into this room? Let me go back out of this room.
That's right.
Come back in this room.
That's
And then
right.
I'm
That
gonna do
list.
it. So I
That's
can't,
yeah.
Exactly. So, you find these ways of dealing with that. But I don't remember years ago walking into a room saying, oh my gosh, why did I come into this garage? It wasn't certainly that. So and then weight gain. Lord have mercy. Been, a steady creep. And has been definitely a challenge. And then I'm having more skin issues. So I've never had skin issues, but like eczema, so not only have acne, but I'm having more skin things that are unexplained than I've ever in the past. So I know that also is related to that. So I'll just, I can keep going, ladies.
You might have me beat. Look, I thought I had a laundry list, but you may have me.
Well, Dr. Kathy, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about the gut health and go ahead.
Yeah, because as I was listening to Debbie, I was, she started off with, okay, menopause. Then it was no more. There's something else going on a little bit. And she is really a perfect story for how menopause or the hormonal imbalances affect our microbiome. And our microbiome, like I always say, is actually the first brain of the body, and because it tells all of our systems what to do. And so as we add things to our menopause, sometimes we're treating symptoms, but we don't treat the core of where everything is coming from. So when you start looking at, so let's just kind of jump toward the end with you. When you start looking at joint pain and skin problems, that is a telltale sign that the gut needs some attention. And a lot of times when you look at anxiety, that actually comes from the gut. It comes from the hormonal changes that cause the anxiety, that then affect the hormone balance in the microbiome. And so I say all this to say, if somebody took hormone replacement, they could mask a lot of that, or we really start looking at for longevity, for anti-aging, for optimal health until we're, and I always say God says 112. And if we did all these things right, we might want to live to 112. So I think you have progressed. You look wonderful. You have progressed normal, but with those kind of things, I would say that the gut health needs some attention. And it really is kind of and that's what we do in functional medicine, is just kind of take a look at where the balance is, restore that balance, whether it's the bacteria, the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, so that the body can then produce everything that it's supposed to produce in an optimal way. When you start having eczema, that means that toxins from just normal foods, and it could even be organic foods, because there's really no organic in the US, because all of our land has had previous pesticides, when all of our land had pesticides, and when they till it over. So when even when you eat healthy, if your gut health is not protective, you can have a normal diet, but just the dyes and the preservatives and the fillers that are put in foods and our medications and those kind of things can enter in, and then it can manifest on the skin and be eczema. It could be acne. It could manifest as hair loss. It could manifest as fatigue and joint pain,
Um,
and many more. But so when you got down to the end of the line, I was like, okay, yes. And really, and I'd like to encourage just ladies to understand, if we bring that in as a real thing, as gut health is a real thing, and we address from a real level gut health, and that's why, I'm no longer in corporate medicine, because they don't address something that can change the future of all of our lives by just a rebalancing, and your body does the rest. The only other option is to let your eczema get worse or your joint pain get worse, and then you go in and they diagnose you with something non-specific, and now you need to be on the injection for the inflammation, or psoriasis and eczemas are getting so bad, and the treatment is, these biologics that treat the symptom but not really the root cause. So yeah, you have a front door to back door symptom of menopause, and you have done wonderfully well. But those end symptoms, I would say, again, take a look at your gut.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I have done, which is really realizing, and that's part of the aha, is how many of those things that were strange, that were coming out of nowhere, that I've never dealt with before, never had this, never had that. Where's this coming from?
That's right.
And then really triple clicking, and that's part of what I have been doing, and
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
You
improved.
mentioned and you've told us so much, but one of the things that I didn't hear you mention, and I'm just curious as to whether or not you were ever offered hormone replacement therapy, or if you ever considered that, or if your gynecologist offered that to you as an option, or can you talk to us about that? Or
About that, yeah, I am taking hormones as like a, bioidentical.
Right.
And I think for me, it was realizing how many of those symptoms that I was experiencing were really related to decreased hormone levels.
Mhm.
And realizing, okay, if we have functioned one way for so long and you take away all of that, there is no wonder that. So it was recognizing there were so many strange things happening, that and I know my body, right? So I know if it could be the slightest, like,
You weren't doing it to yourself.
It
when
wasn't
you finally
You were doing
car,
it. Yeah.
right? If you're putting in, high octane, and all of a
That's
sudden
right.
you hear this weird,
That's
like,
right.
okay,
Something's really
any
right.
strange, I mean, if it's it might be over the top. And it's strange thing that cropped. I was like, what is that? Where did I come from? And why is that even there? So so why does my stomach feel this way? All of that. So
Good job.
triangulated, realized that a lot of this was correlated with fluctuating hormones and decreased hormonal levels, and how imperative that was, and what's out there, what makes sense. So it was a lot of different folks. I wish I had you that can say, okay, I'm doing the traditional and the functional. Let's put it all together. for
Yeah.
me, it was like a whole lot of different folks put it together and then say, okay, what makes sense? What seems more conducive to, what I would be interested in, what I think might work for me. So,
Can I just
yeah,
add something about all of our ladies who possibly can't take hormone replacement therapy? And because hormones, especially plant-based, bioidentical, putting it on a cream or wearing a patch is life-changing. But there's so many women who, have a history of breast cancer or a family history of breast cancer, and they don't want to go anywhere near the hormones. And that's where looking at, other alternatives for treatment and also addressing the microbiome early. So as women begin to get these messages, they know at 51 to come in maybe to somebody who can do functional medicine to help reroute, because a lot of the hormones, if we address that early on, we can reroute our normal pathway to stimulate our stronger estrogen, and it takes care of the hormonal symptoms. And that's, again, done in the microbiome. It's not addressed in other medicines, but I say that to say, because I always have a heart for that lady who says, okay, I hear all this menopause talk, but what about me? My mother, my grandmother, my had breast cancer and I can't do it. I always want them to know that there are options for there's so many non-hormonal options for hot flashes, because that's number one that most that's one that hormones can do better than a lot of a lot of the herbal stuff. And addressing the microbiome is just as or better at treating treating perimenopause and menopause symptoms.
Yeah, I think you said
excellent.
something key too, in that you know your body. And I feel like that's so important, especially for the women listening out there. We all have to get to know our bodies, because I feel like I know my body. Like you said, Debbie, if there's something off, I know when I'm off. I know when there's something a little off kilter. And at this point, especially at this stage in our lives, we have to know our body. And what necessarily might work for Debbie may not work for me. And I also take the bioidentical hormones. They work for me. I was so depleted. My estrogen was so low. I could not function. I couldn't think. I couldn't sleep. I mean, there were so many different things going on. But I think it's important that we get to know our bodies and learn that we have to be, go into these doctor offices and advocate for ourselves, and know that if we walk in and we say that we're not feeling well or something's wrong and we don't feel like we're being heard, then that's the time for us to say, well, I may have to look to someone else so that I can get the help that I need, because we shouldn't have to go through these years of our lives feeling miserable and feeling like we have nothing. Like, a lot of people, we had a caller say that, she was so looking forward to turning 50 and getting to these years, and she's like, it's not anything like I expected. But it doesn't have to be the end of our lives. We can continue to live fulfilling lives, in our middle. Look, at my age, I'm saying we're middle age.
We're halfway.
Middle
Halfway
age
is
to
a
me.
nice way to say it. This is
And I'm probably one of the oldest ones on here, but
No,
but I just think that we don't have to give up living because we're in this phase of menopause and we're suffering from these things. And that's why we're here today to talk about those things, so that if someone else can relate to something that, that Debbie is saying, that it can be a help to someone else, one caller, another caller. But our whole point of doing this is so that we can help others. Yeah.
Right.
So let me just add something for women to get the best out of, because it doesn't have to be. I don't want to look at perimenopause and menopause as, well, we got to accept that you're not going to be your best, but you don't have to be, what your grandmother was. No, we can be better than we were, before we knew anything.
Right.
And the way that we can do that is to absolutely consider plant-based bioidentical hormone replacement therapy with somebody who knows. And if you're someone who says that's not the right option for me, consider functional medicine, because it's either one or the other. The body is going to age, and aging doesn't feel fun. And either it needs to be rebalanced so you slow the aging process, and that's what functional medicine does, or you do the hormone replacement therapy, and that's what that will help you do, or you do a combination of both. So and I would challenge that the patients that I work with actually feel better than they did 10, 20 years ago because of the balancing. And so, I really want to look at it as, and I'm over 60, let me just say that. And one day, but before the end of all these podcasts, we're gonna come out with our ages, but we can't there. But I would say honestly, I feel better than I did at 40. And 40 is when, most of us feel like, because we're old enough to know what we like and what we don't like. And we're still, and I feel better than then. And that is really, whether it's hormone replacement. I mean, I would just say, don't go in alone. Don't go in accepting that, I want to just be the best I can be. You can be better than you ever felt that you could be. And Debbie, with you are making the steps, and every step that you make, especially now that you're addressing the microbiome, you probably every year feel better than you felt the year before. It's like a new awakening.
Right.
And that's an exciting feeling, because we are the smartest we've been in our lives at our age now than we've ever been.
Right.
And look, if the audience could see all of us, I promise you, audience, we look 25. You know,
And the wonderful thing is, there's no one size fit all.
That's
So
right.
so really understanding what options are available,
Yeah.
Yes.
understanding what works for this person or that person, and what are the things that I need to explore?
That's
What
right.
am I a good candidate for? What do I feel ready for? Mentally as well as physically.
Yeah.
And don't give up. And we don't. It's easier said than done to say, all right, just go in and say, if you don't hear this, or if they're not taking you seriously, all right, then find another doctor. That costs money too, right? But
Yeah.
but
Right.
but but at fundamentally, just knowing that we don't have to just accept, and we don't have to give up, and
Mhm.
we are not crazy, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes we're
Oh yeah.
just unheard,
Yeah.
and all right, well, no, we don't feel like we're believed or understood.
Mhm.
You're not crazy, and you're deserving
Yes.
of options.
And and part of it also too is just educating yourself. There's more access. So like a podcast like this, women can say, oh, there are actually things that I can do. And one of the things, if you go to the doctor and if they're not speaking the same language, you don't have to go through 3 and 4 visits of figuring out this person is telling me the same thing each time. You can, they're through the Menopause Society, there's several ways to find certified doctors who can really help with those challenges, and those resources are more and more available today than they've ever been. And I guess the main takeaway is that we have options, and we have very good options to go beyond.
Absolutely. And should
Yes.
feel
Yeah.
empowered to do that.
Yes, empowered is the word. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that part of when we do talk a little bit about, so the approach that we had was is okay, what's happening, learn, understand, and then what can we do to try to empower women, how
Mhm.
can we be a
Yeah,
part
and
of
this
that
is
with
this is the
technology.
share. I
So
mean, as you go, it's the empowerment and then sharing. I just always think about each one teach one, or reach back and bring one, and
Mhm.
basically, that's what you did through your Facebook society, which is great, and what we're hoping to do. We've gotta empower people. We've gotta have everyone understand that they're not in this alone. And if you are not heard, seek someone else who will hear you. And because I think as women for so long, it's just like, oh, it's almost like we would be labeled as, oh, she's just a woman, like it was a bad thing, she's just being a woman right now. And really we're complex. We're the leaders, we're the movers, we're the shakers, we're the mom, we carry the babies, we are the teachers. So we are very complex, and our issues are going to be complex. I mean, the change of life is complex, and it should be complex for who we are. And so understanding that if we're not heard one place, we need to seek it out and empower ourselves and others around us.
yeah, and it's funny that you should say that, because I think part of the challenge is we're so accustomed to be focusing on others, our
Mhm.
children, our family, or,
Mhm.
we're caregivers, go on and on. And this is something that's affecting us. So in our entire household, there's only one person that's dealing with, the types of things that we're talking about here, and who might feel like nobody cares. We might feel they can't help. They don't want to hear it. But it's really standing in that light and saying, you know what, yes, I have to deal with it, but I can be empowered as I do that. I don't have to just go away somewhere, get myself together in the bathroom or the closet
Mhm.
or the whatever, and then come out and pretend everything is okay.
Mhm.
There are solutions. We can connect with others. We're not alone. We're individual, but united in terms of all those types of things that are happening, and just find ways to feel encouraged and empowered. And there's so many different things that we can implement to try to feel better. And then we have to worry about not only at home, but at work. How do we
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
and be productive and successful when we feel horrible on the inside sometimes?
That's what I would say was one of the most critical times for me when I was going through menopause was having to, and when I went through, I was ashamed. It was not I didn't feel empowered. I wanted to hide it. I didn't want, and but I remember having to try to I thought that it would make me look so as a GYN surgeon. Oh, I don't know. I thought it would make me look like, well, she's going through menopause. I don't know if I want her operating on me. Or if I was doing a consent for surgery and I'd break out in a sweat, like how do you like we didn't talk about menopause. Like how do you, navigate that? So for a lot of women who are still in the boardrooms now at 60, or certainly at 50, it is just not acceptable to have that. And we've all had that. Oh, she's coming. I forgot her name. What's her name? What's her name? And like the person and you can't think of the name, or you forget what you're saying in the middle of the sentence. That really can't, happen anymore. I mean, it's something that I guess women need to know that there are solutions for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And be able to
And
navigate spaces.
Yeah.
yeah.
Practiced law for a number of years. So I thought about, okay, if I'm in a courtroom, how am I going to handle that? I'm an entrepreneur. All right. So I'm in a boardroom. How am I going to handle that? And, social life and get together. What would I do if I'm in a ballroom? Right. So
And
what,
having a
what
hot
types
flash.
of things?
Yes.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
what do we have? What solutions, and how can I be empowered so I can navigate
Yeah,
all those
it made me
spaces
think
very
about, I
seamlessly?
think it was Simone Biles or maybe Osaka that said it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
We give ourselves permission to, yeah, I'm having a hot flash or I'm not feeling good right now, and that's okay.
Right.
This moment is okay, not the entire thing. Like I want to do something to change it, but for this moment, this hot flash, it's mine and it's okay. You
Denise,
know,
did you say
Great.
you didn't
I
have
had
hot
very
flashes?
little. I
'Cause that's why you're saying that. Hot for those of us who have had, like, it's not okay. It can be that bad. So
Yeah.
what I say all that to say, I think the better, like, what I want women to know is you can actually feel like you want to cry in the moment, but you can't move, because it's happening and you have no control over it. There are options to that. So
Yeah.
I was listening to her like, oh, that's right. Denise has had the little baby hot flashes. I'm fine in the moment. There are times you're in the middle of talking to somebody and you feel like somebody turned the heat on and you're looking and seeing nobody else is sweating, nobody else is panicking, and you want to take your clothes off. You want to take your clothes off to get relief.
no, but
Okay, did you
really,
ever
You
have
know
it
what?
that
And
bad where you
strangely, as many things, and I've had a lot. I got a lot to talk about, but I never
didn't?
had really bad hot flashes. I mean,
Mm.
at night, I might have like a night sweat or something where a breakout where I have to take the cover off for a few minutes, and I could put it back on. And then the only other thing is, and I mentioned this before, is like I was at the hairdresser once and getting my hair done, and she was like, "Ooh, are you having a hot flash? But I could feel it internally. And I said, yeah, how do you know? She says, I can feel it on your head,
Radiating.
but I would get warm inside. But I never was one. And I've seen women that have and I have felt for them because I see them,
Right.
I mean, like break out in a sweat. And it wasn't me, but I'm going to be honest. I felt so sorry for them. And I didn't really, and I mean, I knew it was a so-called hot flash, but I just, because I hadn't experienced it, but I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine going through that. Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine the fan or the air being on and it's on high. But then also imagine if you're a breast cancer survivor and you don't really know what, because now ladies they know that, okay, I'll go and put the cream on or the patch and they can mitigate that. But for those who don't have any other options,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. And then you don't sleep. And when you don't sleep, your brain doesn't work. You're not nice. And then you find yourself apologizing 100 times a day because you don't really mean it, but your life is falling apart and no one seems to understand. That is, yeah, I'm happy you two missed that. That's why you probably still look like babies. A hot flash will
Yeah.
wear
but
you out.
Kathy, what I was wanting to say was it wasn't about, the hot flash being okay, but that not to have shame about having the hot flash.
Okay.
And you're not alone, right? So
Right.
it's not,
Yeah.
with me, it was like, okay, I feel like I'm dying here. What is going on? There's something different that's happening.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with the physical, but you're also dealing with the external. Where am I when this is happening? Who's watching? What do I need to do? Do I need to be speaking in public? Am I sitting in a room full of people? And all of those things really,
And so, Debbie, I wanted
intensifies
to
it.
give you an opportunity to talk about how these hot flashes change the focus of your life and what you have done because you experienced these hot flashes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so started a company. So it's a health tech company called Thermoband, and actually started it with my daughter, which was wonderful. So really put all our skills together to really partner with clinicians and engineers and scientists. So that's a scientific. Bring there. I'm actually a legal background and business, worked in benefits and welfare and retirement benefits and stuff. So the benefits and the legal, and really come up with technology to make temperature portable. So what we realized was that when folks were experiencing this discomfort, we're too hot or too cool, what a lot of women were doing was holding on to something cold. So putting your hand in cold running water, holding a glass of ice. Some people would go into meetings with a glass of ice, and then nobody knows. But if a hot flash starts and I hold on to this thing that's cold, it really dissipates the hot flash. Well, you don't always have a freezer or a tap, a faucet available, or ice. So what if we made temperature portable in the form of a bracelet? So we've created a technology called the Thermoband Zone, which which can be activated either manually or automatically. So it can sense the thermal dysregulation, turn on, gives a cool sensation on the pulse point of the inner wrist, and help to dissipate the hot flash. And then we have a connected app, and through that app, we can both quantitative and qualitative. So there will be biometric health information that can be shared with clinician, and it's all about being empowered. So we know what's happening with our bodies. We know when it's happening, frequency, intensity, duration. We can put information in there, share that, and ultimately empower us so that we can have a better experience and help to
So it's
manage our symptoms
basically
over
sticking
time.
your head out the window on that freezing night in Michigan. Gotcha. Now,
Right.
does it feel cold to the person, or is it just that it gives that sensation to that point on your wrist? Do they
It,
feel
it,
cold?
it feels cold on the inner wrist. So if this were a glass of ice and I go like this and put my wrist on the glass of ice, or So it gives a cool sensation at pulse point. So with the science of thermoregulation, what we understood was really it's our body's ability to adapt and find comfort using the environment around us. So we experienced thermoregulation, but I didn't even really know what it was. But if you think about going into like a pool and you feel really cold, and then after a while the pool feels very comfortable. It's really the thermoregulatory brain or brain really adjusting to that environment. So when people hang on to that cold glass of ice or put their hand on the granite countertop or put their hand in the cool water, that cool sensation, allows our brain to really kind of reduce the intensity of the hot flash. Because what we understood is that much of the hot flash is caused by the fluctuating hormones. It's not that, we're overheating or our brain thinks we're overheating. So the hot flash is to cool us down. So when we quickly introduce a cool sensation, it really
So is the
dissipates.
bracelet worn so the person would wear the bracelet, and when they start to feel the hot flash, does it activate itself or do they have to do something to activate it?
Either. So
Oh,
so
okay.
so we have a patent that allows us to act. So the through our patent we're able to sense the onset of the hot flash, or we'll say the dysregulation, and turn on. So when you're sleeping, this it
Oh,
can turn on. You don't have to wake up and put the cover on, turn on the fan, drink the cold water, all that kind of
that's
thing.
awesome.
So it
Just
was
revel-
yeah, how can we have if something cold works, why not make it portable? So just having something available, and some people might want manual, but what if we also did automatic? So if it can sense that our skin temperature is rising
Right.
or whatnot, turn on. Sometimes we're uncomfortably hot or uncomfortably cold, so it can give us cool or warm sensation, and ultimately, is just giving a technological approach to making that temperature portable and giving
So
us
it,
some
it
comfort.
would give a warm sensation because sometimes women will have a hot flash and then after that then they're cold.
Exactly.
Wow, that's
Exactly.
wonderful.
It's hot or cold. 5 levels of heating, 5 levels of cooling.
Wow.
You figure out what is comfortable for you. You can program it, and then it can turn on without. So I'm having this conversation. If I'm having a hot flash, it can turn on, and I can start
Yeah.
feeling relief, and nobody has to know. And even with hormones, it might reduce the intensity, but it's not 100% in
Correct.
the situation, and we don't take it for ever and ever and ever, right? So
Yeah.
it's something that can
And how
complement
quickly does it
anything
work? I
that we're
mean,
doing.
5 minutes, 5 seconds, what?
Yeah, it's pretty instantaneous. It's
Uh-huh.
one of those things where the feedback
Neurologic
and
feedback. Yeah.
yeah, you feel like the hot flash is starting, and I know there's a term for that. You feel like this thermostat, and
Coming
then
down.
you feel it start to
Just
go.
down.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
Wow.
pretty
Very nice.
instantaneous.
This is gonna revolutionize how women, deal with this, especially like you were saying, in the boardroom, in the ballroom, and
Mm.
to not have to, not to, we may have other issues, but that won't be one of them.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it, and really, and we're looking at women's health and the spectrum of what we experience across, right? So we're looking at menopause, but there's so many, if both our ovaries are removed, right? So a lot of those hot flashes can kick in. We have with the hysterectomies, we have the cancer, we have pregnancy, fertility treatment, the thyroid. There's so many things that really can cause this thermal dysregulation, and we're not even getting into athletes and stress. And so just to use technology to provide a solution, occupational situations as well. We really see that this can
Are you
be quite
saying that the
revolutionary,
thermal
and we're
band will be
excited
good
to
across the age spectrum? Is that big?
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
I really could have used that when I did my doctoral presentation. I mean, I was sweating and what do you call it? Stress sweat stinks. It's the worst. And I was sitting there trying to defend, and I'm like, dear God, I'm sweating. And that's all I could think about while these people are like asking me questions, you know. So I really could have used it then.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's what we're trying to do is create something that's conducive to our lifestyle. So we know, especially with Black women, right?
Yeah.
So the textbook might say that these symptoms start in our 50s plus. We know it starts earlier. So we have
Yes.
women in their 30s, and I'm telling you, have my girls talking to contemporaries in their 20s, like with early breast cancer and that sort of thing. So starts earlier, lasts longer, is more intense. So across the spectrum, what are we talking? Pregnancy, fertility, menopause, perimenopause, postmen, the cancer treatment. There are so many women experiencing so many things, and men actually have hot flashes too, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
prostate cancer and that kind of treatment.
True.
So really just, wanting to create a solution that is we gender neutral and age agnostic is what we say. So just a simple solution using technology to make temperature portable and give insights through the app to empower the user and their clinicians to really help manage whatever is
Well, I
happening
would
with their
say over my
bodies.
whole 30 years, this is one of the best products I have ever heard of for menopause. And I'm saying this as a woman who, that was one of my major issues. That was a debilitating issue for me when I went through menopause. And so to have a product like that, and especially now when the eyes are open, oh, hey, women do matter. Maybe we should do some funding. Maybe that, yes, we'll be nicer wives and nicer grandmothers and all of that. But this is a wonderful time for women to start hearing about this, and even knowing that these kind of products are real and are helpful. It would have changed my life. Again, because I was somebody who, my mother had breast cancer, and I could, and it was during the time with the Women's Health Initiative where nobody should be on hormones. So it was a double whammy, and there were no options. This would have been something that would have changed my life. I could sit there and talk to patients and not have to worry about stress sweat, like Denise said, or is she think I'm not telling is she thinking that I'm not telling the truth because I'm sweating,
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Much. It's
Wow.
these conversations that really empower, because the entrepreneurial journey is not an easy one. And in addition to start talking about menopause and hot flashes and people looking at you like you're crazy and what is to create technology and to that whole entrepreneurial journey, but the inspiration and these types of conversation that says, okay, we're on the right
Debbie,
track,
I
and
can
we're really trying to
already
make a
hear
difference.
people are going to be
It's
reaching
very
out to us and asking us, how do I get one? How does that work for you? Tell me a little bit. And I realize we're going to need to wrap up pretty soon. So just tell us a little bit about how can they get one or anything like that.
Anything. Thank you. So the website is Thermaband, THERMABAND, thermaband.com. So information is available there. We are taking pre-orders and are in the process of manufacturing to try to get that out the door. We're not shipping at this time, but we have a community of women and those who are very interested in what we're doing and wanting to be a part of this community and this solution. So lots of information is available. And so join, the community there on thermoband.com as a website. And then on Facebook, Multi-Generational Sisterhood, Embracing Health, Wellness, and Menopause. Would love to have anyone, women join and share their stories and just learn, that you're not alone.
And I would say,
I think the more we educate ourselves, the better off we are. I mean, it's so important that we educate ourselves and make sure that we know what's available and what options we have.
Awesome.
and I would say, as a hot flash sufferer, I would say pre-order for yourself, your best friend, the lady who sits next to you at work, the little lady who comes and dumps the trash and all of that would be a wonderful to anybody to say, I love you and I don't want you to have the experience that I have. That is, I would definitely order as many as you can, pre-order as many as you can.
Thank you. That's awesome. And that's actually what we're
Can
seeing. People are
imagine.
like, okay.
Yes. I would have, I mean, had it been
What?
around when I went through, I would have had 2 of them. I would have had 2 of them, and I would have told every patient I know that this is the way to go. Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's funny that you should say that because the amount of physicians who have shared that, even those who are super empathetic and listening carefully and wish they had more to offer, they feel excited to say, hey, go check out this website and go check out this solution because I know what you're experiencing. There's not much we can do medically, but why don't you check this out? Because this
Debbie,
might be
we
something
are
that can
so
give you some
blessed to have
relief.
had you
And
on the program today. This has just been wonderful. I love the fact that you are a woman of color, a brilliant woman who have decided to change the way the rest of our lives go. You know how we deal with our issues of menopause and living longer and enjoying life. So thank you so much for all that you have done and for coming on to the program. We're very, very blessed.
I am mutually blessed and just delighted to be here. And again, this is nourishment for me too, because this is a tough journey and there's a lot of passion that goes into why we're doing it. And sometimes it's like, so it's nice to have this community and
Yes,
this
keep
fellowship
doing
that
it.
says,
You're
okay,
doing it, and I'm super proud of you. And to say that I know you, and for like I said, being a woman of color too. I mean, making a difference and making a change. You're taking menopause, something that this negative stigma, and turning it into a positive for other people. So yeah, yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, and I'm happy for our listeners to be able to have heard you and to know you and to know your story and to know that a Black female menopausal woman is strong and powerful and cared that much about your experience and our experience that no one else should have to suffer that way. I'm just happy that they were able to hear your story because it is the story of love for us and to make a difference, and you certainly have.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
See you next time.
This is Menopause Diaries, real talk, real stories. Thanks for listening. Let's thrive together through every hot flash, mood swing, and sleepless night. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Menopause Diaries, real talk, real stories. If you have questions or want to share your story or would like to be a guest, visit us on Instagram at Menopause Diaries Podcast. Let us start a conversation and navigate this journey together.